Hello, Yiskaow here, and I wanted to apologize for the lack of watch point the last 2 weeks. Real life hit us pretty hard, so some of us have families, have to, figure all this real life thing out, and for us it's obviously a hobby that the guys do in the evening, and sometimes stuff comes up. I actually do it at night most of the time because of time zone differences. And it's quite hard to match schedules when we can't use the normal time spot. So instead, you're stuck with me with this new format. I actually tried to have this on my other channel and didn't really continue doing it, but I feel like now is the time to do more of these things. It's called Thinking It Over. I plan to simply talk about concepts, sometimes maybe teams, just some things that I don't think fit very well in the podcast or are very topical issues which we can't react to with our scheduling. Obviously, you see here this overlay stuff is as far as my literally paint skills go. So this has been created in Paint, quite obviously. I will ask Walsha if he can visit something. He does the overlays for us, and I will see if he can do something for me in that regard. I think Trips might also try to upload stuff on this channel. So we will have this on top of Watchpoint, which we hopefully will have this Thursday. I think there's a lot to talk about. This is as far as the intro goes, and now we are just going to talk about a topic that I initially actually thought we would do on the podcast. But today we're going to talk about the pull of the gimmick play. Now, what is that? Recently there was a trend, especially also on the main subreddit, on the Overwatch main subreddit, that people have these cutesy tactics that help them overcome or look very awesome. So, for instance, if you guys haven't seen it, it's on Ilios, the huge hole where the Mei gets the wall over the edge, and then the Zarya can put her graviton surge on the Mei wall, and they get sucked into the hole and drop down. Another one would be the NRG strategy of boosting with Mei, so where they all get together. I think this first happened on Anubis, where they all came together to be boosted onto the plateau on the after the first choke on Anubis, and I've seen some issues with that. But let's first talk about what a gimmick play is. In general, gimmick play is one tactic you employ with which you try to overcome one obstacle, or sometimes it can also be killing someone or just holding down an area. And I'm sure you guys have many tactics that you just subconsciously deploy on the regular. For instance, let's say cutting the team in half would be a tactic of some such, right? Or spamming a certain point with Junkrat would be such a gimmick play, or one tactic. But really, and what I would really want to emphasize here is the gimmick play is only as helpful as long as it's working. And the problem also is that a lot of people seem to be psychologically drawn to these plays, want to force these plays, and that's where they get ineffective, and also want to one-trick pony this. So let's break this down. What I can say is gimmick plays aren't bad per se. We see actually NRG doing these. We're going to talk about later how necessary these things are. But in general, they are part of every player's playbook, as I explained them. Now, some of them are obviously stronger than the others, and the problem really arises with gimmick plays is when they get so powerful that all you have to do all game is exactly that gimmick play, and it will win you fights. And in those instances, I think we can realistically say, okay, this is overpowered, because what you should be having, and what world-class players do have, is a portfolio, a repertoire of gimmick plays where they aren't gravitating towards that one play where they want to put themselves into this position and think, yeah, this is one thing that we want to do. For instance, Roadhog on this Ilios map with a huge hole comes to mind, where you pull people into the area. Now, people seem to be overemphasizing these gimmick plays and seem to judge strength based on the existence of such strong plays. Now, obviously, a Roadhog pull that instant kills someone basically by throwing him into the pit is looks cool. Not too many characters can do anything against it, but the problem is then that two things arise. The first thing is the player thinks, oh yeah, here's this hole, and that's why I pick Roadhog on this map, because it's very good. Now, on that Ilios map, I think the gimmick is strong enough that it has at least some justification. And also, Roadhog in general is not that bad on the map. But that is a much more important question for you to ask is, okay, there's this gimmick play. What other gimmick plays do I have? How else does the character function here? What's my team composition like? What could my opponents be likely taking here? And most of the time, I think this really drops into the background of decision making for most people, because they see this gimmick play, they know that it's sort of like an epic win feel, where when it works, it feels so nice, it feels so easy. But most of the time, realistically, and especially in this Zarya Mei case, it probably doesn't work that well or reliably. And then you're also stuck with Zarya Mei, which, okay, in this case, you were kind of lucky. Zarya Mei is actually a pretty good combo in general. But for other instances, for instance, let's say Roadhog would be very bad on this map, other than these gimmicks working, better players will, over the time, just predictably look at your play and will realize that this is all you're doing. You're being a run trick, and it's then rather easy to work around. Like, even the stronger gimmick plays, such as the Mei wall, have now been countered by, for instance, placing the wall perpendicular, or boosting over certain positions in the map in order to overcome these. Now, I can reliably tell you no pro player thinks things like that, and they don't feel this psychological pull because they have the skills in other departments where they feel, okay, my skill level or my success rate isn't artificially boosted by employing this one gimmick play and therefore overcoming my opponent, when in terms of skill we shouldn't match up. And there probably shouldn't also, as we said, there shouldn't be that many strategies that have that large of an impact in Overwatch, so you could reliably gain rating or just get better on that, or otherwise they would be hopefully nerfed quite quickly, right? In a sense, I mean, you could argue that, well, it's not really a gimmick play, but the way Ana functions is almost kind of binary, where you either put it on the Reaper or sometimes the Reinhardt, and it just works. And obviously there have been huge complaints because of that, because it's too easy to employ. And the counterplay actually is quite skillful, but we are now seeing it actually. If you watch the weekend tournaments, that these things are slowly being figured out and counted. For instance, if you remember Hidan on Hollywood sleep darting the Reaper before he could even drop to the ground, because this thing keeps happening, it keeps winning games, and then better players will develop a sense for this gimmick play, and they will be able to counter it quite reliably, and sometimes, obviously, also almost with a sixth sense. And the better the players also are with reading these signs, for instance, where's the Reaper? The Reaper hasn't ulted in a while. This is telegraphing these decisions, and this is true for every other single gimmick play. Now, if we're focusing, for instance, on the Mei wall Zarya thing, you could think, okay, the Zarya probably has ultimate because she hasn't ulted in a while. And also, why the hell is the Mei standing in such a way there? It's not really that quick to deploy the strategy. So it's rather easy to counter. And the counterplay is actually quite easy because only the very edges of the hole and a little bit wider are really being pulled into the hole, and it's not very effective against players who know what's going on, who will just, you know, hug the walls or the sides of the point, and there's plenty of space to still disrupt the channeling process and at the same time not being pulled in. And then you have wasted a Zarya ultimate, which would otherwise be quite effective, and possibly a Mei wall, which, okay, granted, is not that good on that specific point. It's not useless though. So you wasted one very long cooldown and one shorter one for basically no play, and worse, you also chose a strategy and took your time out of that when you could have been doing something less gimmicky, more general play, or could have been employing even another gimmick play. So I guess my message here is, don't focus on this one thing you saw Seagull do, for instance, which I see quite often now, right? Or don't focus on and if you have this play in your repertoire, try to expand it. Try to get more of these plays. Try to not have this thing, this new shiny thing that you saw working, and then 9 out of 10 times it actually doesn't because people have already caught up. Because let's face it, if you saw it on Reddit, there's a good chance a load of people know about it, especially because, you know, the skill range of Reddit users is probably much more narrow than the general population would be. So one specific type of thing where I was really surprised by is that our NRG seem to be adhering to this gimmick play of boosting Mei walls, and it's almost like they practice this and they've obviously been on boot camp and they've practiced this, and now they want to use it on almost every single map. We saw them use it on Icon Wall to get through the first choke. Now, and I hope I don't forget to link it, as Flame successfully pointed out, is that it is almost kind of strange that NRG keeps coming up with these strategies and really countering nothing at all. When, for instance, what this boost play on Icon Wall is supposed to be is you counter the enemy Mei by simply being able to walk over the first choke, and then the Mei can't separate you. Now, whenever they deployed that strategy, there wasn't even the Mei in the opponent team, and they did it anyway. Now, the problem is, that is all fine and well for the characters where it's actually useful for. So there is some characters that you want to have up on that choke, but some of them obviously want to be down in the trenches and fighting, and the resource allocation, so the time allocation, which is very, very important. Obviously, we were playing for time in Overwatch, we're playing for space. It's very important to not waste those on these gimmicky plays that in the end would have been cutesy and probably nice for like 2 players of your team to employ, but then to have the entire team really concentrate on this thing and then be up there where they could be in another much more beneficial position, it is questionable. And but this is, I feel this is also the very soul of the team, that they always try to really toy around with these picks. So ever since early beta, they were called mix-up then. And they've always been trying to innovate the meta in some sort of way. Sometimes it worked, such as the Diva spam. Thank you for that. And ever since then, they had some out of the ordinary picks that more or less didn't really work. I guess they work against the lower level teams, but if they try to punch up, they rarely hit with these strategies, and they rarely try to, you know, play by the books, play the meta, and in that sense of pound for pound skill or execution as a team, try to outplay their opponent. They try to outthink their opponent before the draft happens, and even there they sometimes or quite often fall short when they're playing against better teams. So I guess my conclusion from this is that even high-level players really feel this gravitational pull of the gimmick play, sometimes probably don't evaluate if it's the best thing to do in the situations. It is sort of this almost Pavlovian pull that you learned, okay, this strategy, this gimmick play gives me satisfaction as well as success, often, for instance, in scrims. And then people start adapting to them because they're most of the time not overpowered, and then you fall short and have to come up with new stuff, which then the circle continues, and they are not really, you know, honing the other parts of the game where they have a wide repertoire of strategies or even unknown strategies that the opponent couldn't predict in the moment, or it's harder to read, or they're just being out executed, and then you put yourself in a disadvantage because you were trying to play gimmicky. So I hope this was sorta insightful. I tried to do this one take. My hard drive filled up in the middle of it, so I had to do one cut. I hope to do more of these. I hope to especially improve from a rhetoric point of view, and also, you know, clarity of language and expressing my thought. And in general, you can just find us here on this channel. We will still be doing Watchpoint. All that's really changing is that we're going to try to do a little bit more on this channel. Thanks for watching.